of the Agency and Freelancer Academy webinar series with me, Dylan Hay, and PromoRepublic. Just want to check that you can all hear me okay. If you can hear me, can you just let me know in the chat box? Perfect. Great. Cool. I can see a few people saying yes. So what we're going to do is, like usual, we'll give it another couple of minutes before we get started, just for anybody who is going to join this webinar a little bit after time. We'll probably get started, or we will get started at 5 minutes past the hour. So we'll just wait until 5 past, just for anyone else who joins the webinar late or has any problems connecting or anything like that. But in the meantime, before we do get started, it'd be great to hear from all of you who are tuned in. How many of you have been on one of these Agency and Freelancer Academy webinars before? How many of you are here for the first time? And all those familiar faces, please make sure you say hello as well. It'd be good to see. I can see in the attendee list there's a few of you here too. Awesome, that's great. Thanks, thanks, Tiara. Mark says yes. Mark, does that mean you've been on one of these webinars before, or is this your first one? Okay, a couple of people saying this is their second one, which is great. Do we have anyone who's brand new on this webinar? I just have some fireworks going off right outside my window as well, so sorry if any of you can pick that up. So yeah, we'll get started in a couple of minutes time. Cool. So we're going to get started in a couple of minutes. Just waiting for a few more people to join before we start. So there will also be a recording available for whoever has asked that. So all of these webinars will be shared on the PromoRepublic YouTube channel. So if you haven't already, go and check out the YouTube channel, because the last 3 episodes of this series have all been uploaded there too. I'm hoping that's the end of the fireworks that were just going off outside of my apartment, but we will wait and see. So as I said, we'll get started at 5 past the hour, so we'll give it another 2 or 3 minutes before we continue. But this week we're going to be talking all about how to generate more leads using social media channels. So how you can generate more leads for your business, for your agency, or for your freelancer business too. It'd be great to hear actually from the number of you that are tuning into this webinar for the first time. Some of you have been here before. How much is generating new leads for the business? How important is that for you? And how many of you are having difficulties with that right now? Maybe if you could share some of the problems that you're having too, and I can make sure that throughout this webinar we'll cover those problems. I'm going to try and make this one today as interactive as possible for you all. And hi to everyone who is just joining us. I can see there's a couple of people coming through, which is awesome. Okay. So Vlad, it's really, really important for him, and this is his first time here. Cool. Thanks for joining us, Vlad. Your name in the chat is coming up as Test. So if there's any way that you could change that, Vlad, that would be awesome, so that I don't get confused when we're talking throughout the webinar. So these webinars will be very kind of interactive as well. Okay, cool. So we're 5 minutes past the hour, so we'll get started. Before we do that, I just want to make sure for one last time everybody can hear me okay. I haven't got my camera on this week. I've just gone with an image instead, because we had some problems with video over the last couple of weeks. So just let me know you can hear me okay and you're ready to get started, and then we will we'll kick this webinar off. Perfect. Cool. Thanks, Alicia. Okay, cool. So let's get started. So today we're going to be covering 3 main kind of topic areas. The first one of those is the importance of identifying exactly who your target customer is, and we'll go through some ways that you can identify that target customer too. We'll talk about how you can optimize your social media profiles to help you generate more inbound traffic and more leads for your agency or your freelancer business. And we'll also be going through some lead generation do's and don'ts. And throughout this webinar, I'm going to do like a kind of live part 2 where we can go through either like my social profiles, but ideally some of you who are listening to this, like see if we can troubleshoot some problems live as well. And for anyone who's new to this webinar series, so just a quick bit of information about me. My name is Dylan Hay. I also run my own digital marketing agency, so I have very common ground with, I would imagine, most of you who are on this webinar. Let me know in the chat box, what do you do? Do you run an agency? Are you a freelancer? What does your agency focus on? It'd be awesome to learn a bit more about who's tuned in and who's listening to this one today. So I run a digital marketing agency. We focus on helping SaaS and software businesses. Previous to that, I worked for a couple of big companies within the social media space, like Hootsuite, and I looked after growth for a cool startup called Leadfeeder. I run a podcast, so that one is called the Social Media Growth Show. It's been within the top 15 on the iTunes charts for a while now, and you can see some other cool facts about me here. But that's just a bit about me. I am the one that is leading this agency and freelancer academy for PromoRepublic. So we have this weekly webinar series. We have created a Facebook community for agency owners and freelancers where people are sharing tips and tricks with each other and where we can continue the conversation after these webinars. And we're also doing a number of interviews and other useful kind of pieces of content for you. So we're investing very heavily within the agency owner and freelancer space and doing as much as we possibly can to help all of you out. So Vlad says that he has an agency focused on agencies, so running social media lead generation campaigns. So Vlad, do you do those for other social media agencies? Greg has an agency and also a SaaS platform. That sounds awesome, Greg. Tiara says she's in the infancy stages of developing a digital agency for healthcare and small businesses. Cool. So we've got like a wide variety of people on here, which is great. And just out of interest too, do any of you currently use PromoRepublic, or is PromoRepublic not something that's part of your kind of tool stack just yet? That'd be really cool to know as well. But it's great seeing all of the different things that you are kind of focusing on and different businesses that you're working with. So the first part of this webinar is we're going to be talking about identifying your target customer and also like how important that is. So before you start doing any lead generation, any content marketing, a step that a lot of people often miss out on is this one, and that's identifying your target customer. And this is something that I've been talking a lot about recently with clients of mine, with like coaching students of mine, and something that I've been focusing on for myself as well. How many of you, especially the ones that said that you're kind of new to this and your agencies are new or your freelancer businesses are new, how many of you have really spent time identifying exactly who your target customer is? And when I say that, I mean a little bit more than just like, I want to be speaking with CEOs of small businesses, because often that's a mistake that a lot of people make. It'd be really interesting to hear from you how much time you've put into that, because this is something that we're going to be talking about a lot. So I can see a few of you typing away, so I'll let you carry on, and let's start talking about when we identify this target customer, how do we do it, and also just some important things to note. Okay, so it's great to see. Tiara says a lot of time researching. Vlad says he's making adjustments every day. Yeah, that's a really good attitude to take as well, actually. But when thinking about your target customer, often a lot of people, instead of genuinely thinking about what it is that their target kind of wants to see, they really just focus on what they can do for their clients. So for example, my agency, we focus on like social media management and we do paid acquisition campaigns for SaaS businesses. But too often people will they would say, okay, the problem that we solve is we help companies acquire new users through Facebook ads, for example. And while that is a problem, that's not the problem that the founder of the business has or thinks they have. Like, yes, they want more users, but often the problem that they think they have is actually more important to focus on. So they might think that they need more people on their website, or they might think that they need more users when actually they need to improve their conversion rates. So I hope this makes sense. I know it's can be kind of quite confusing, but I'm saying that when people are building out exactly who their target customer is, too often we jump the gun and immediately think about what we know we can do for them rather than thinking about what they actually want support with. Because once we've made them aware of the problem that they have, only then will they start to focus on how they can fix that problem and what the solution is. So you have to market to these people based on the problem that they think they have and then solve the problem that they actually do have. And this should be really simple and easily understandable. And when we start talking about social media and how we can use social media to generate more leads, throughout that whole process, you should be consistently showing across your different pieces of content, and your bios, for example, across all of your profiles, exactly which problems you're solving and which pain points you're fixing for people. And this is something that's extremely important to think about when you're trying to identify your target customer. Does that make sense to everyone? I can see a few people are typing away in the chat box because I know this can be quite a confusing concept. And this is one that a lot of people that I speak with when they're business owners, I do some coaching with people too. And like when they're thinking about who their target customer is, they just jump straight to what they can do to help them rather than thinking about this kind of problem that the customer, like the problem that keeps the customer awake at night. Because once you address that, then you can start to address how you're going to fix it. Cool. So a few people are saying that makes sense, which is really good. So once you understand exactly what their problem is, what they think their problem is, that's when you have to think about how do you alleviate that problem. So before you start like selling anything, before you start creating any content, before you start optimizing any of your social profiles, you have to really focus in on, okay, we now understand what their problem is, what they think their problem is. What do we do to alleviate that problem? And there's different ways, of course, of setting up business. Some people like to have productized services. Some people like to be a bit more flexible. But whenever you're creating your pricing or your packages for someone, you should always think about how you alleviate the problem of your target customer that we've identified and facilitate bringing that into the pricing and the way that you package up your services for them too. So this is really, really important. And one quote that I wanted to bring up on the screen here is that if you don't spend time identifying exactly who your target customer is and doing a lot of research there, this quote is a really good one. So it says, when you speak to everyone, you speak to no one. And we did a lot more kind of in-depth review of how you build out your target customer in, I think it was the very first webinar that we put out. So that's why I'm not going into full depth with this one. But I just wanted to spend some time talking about how important it is before we start doing any lead generation or any content marketing, how important it is to make sure we have a solid understanding of that target customer and why it makes such a big difference moving forward. So if you haven't already watched the first couple of webinars within this series, I would really recommend like going and checking those out on the YouTube channel so that you can see how we build out our target customers. And I think we also shared like a couple of examples for how you can do that. This is something that I do frequently with other people. So also at the end of this webinar, I'll be sharing like my contact details with you also if anyone wants some recommendations for like articles or templates of how they can build out their target customer. And please just make sure you contact me at the end of this because it's something that I would be able to help you out with. So we always like to put some kind of checklist within these webinars and something that you can remember. So this is just something very brief for when you are building out that target persona and some ideas about how you can start to build out that persona. So if you're just starting your business for the first time, I know we had a few of you in the chat that are just starting out. So this may not be as applicable to you, but if you're just starting out, typically you'll probably start to make assumptions when you're creating your target customer. So you won't have previous data to go from. But if you do have previous data to go from, it's really important to use that. So if you've been running your agency for a while, or even if you've been working for another business and the customers are similar to those that you want to target in your own business, go through all of your current customers or your previous customers and start to utilize data points from them to build out your target persona for any lead generation that you do. So for example, before I set up my own agency, I worked for a couple of different SaaS businesses. So I managed to leverage that time and that experience to understand the typical problems that a SaaS founder faces on a daily basis because I worked with them and I worked for them and also through the customers that we worked with. And I managed to take those problems and use them to help me when building out my target persona for lead generation that I do. And you can do this with current customers, you can do this with previous customers. And I say that it's also really important not just to do this with the best customers that you've ever had. I would say that you should do this with good customers, with bad customers, so that you can really start to build out a clear picture. And then once you've interviewed those people, or you've spoken with them, or you've spent time thinking about what they're like, I really, really recommend that you look through their own like personal social media channels and their own social media activity and see what kind of content they're engaging with and what they're sharing. Often when you look at like target buyer persona creation checklists or guides on various different publications online, this is one step that they'll miss. And this is something that's really important because for my lead generation strategy and for a lead generation strategy that works, a lot of it is fueled by content. And you can't create content for these people without a plan. So knowing and spending time seeing what they're currently engaging with and what they're producing, what they're sharing, that can really help you too. So always remember to spend some time doing that. Really drill down into persona details. So you don't want your target buyer to just be CEO of a small business. It needs to be much more specific than that. As I said before, utilize all the data that you currently have, and then make sure once you've been through this process, you create a template or somewhere where you can store that persona. So there's a ton of templates available online. I use the one from, it's actually from Digital Marketer. Like if you were to just Google digitalmarketer.com target persona or customer avatar template, they have a great one there where it's all laid out, and then I just fill that in, and I have that saved on my computer, and I'm consistently updating that. So what do you guys think of that? Is that useful? I can see there's a couple of questions in the chat, so I'm just going to take those. But I would love to hear from you. What else do you do when identifying a target persona, or maybe what challenges have you had so far with building out your persona? Is there any questions I can help with on this specific area? Okay, so Marcia says we would love some suggestions on getting new clients for a new service. Okay. Okay, so I'm just taking a look at Marcy's question. So yeah, we can go a bit more in depth on that, maybe a bit further on into the webinar, Marcy, helping you like identify your target customer. But if you've already spent time coming up with this idea for a service, like how did you come up with that idea? Like I'm sure you must have spoken to people that match that criteria, right? So I would love to hear from you first, like what those kind of people look like how you came up with that idea, and then we could start to go into the kind of depth that you could go into with creating that target customer. And I can see that Vlad says, how do you target managers rather than CEOs? So Vlad, when you say how do you target managers rather than CEOs, what do you mean by that? Because I wouldn't approach a manager any differently than I would a CEO. Like the approach is still very similar. But we can continue to take these as we go throughout the webinar. We have like a Q&A session at the end of this webinar where we can go into more in-depth kind of questions. So make sure you hang around for that. I can answer some quick questions as we go through based on the slides and based on what we're going through. But we will do like a more in-depth Q&A session at the end as well, just to keep you informed. So if you have any like longer questions, we can dive into those at the end. So this is the next kind of step within the process. Once we've identified exactly who our target customer is, before we start doing any lead generation on social media, because that's what we're here to talk about today, we have to talk about how to optimize your social profiles. But before we do that, how many of you are currently generating leads from social media, or where are your leads coming from right now? Typically, I know that a lot of the kind of smaller agencies and businesses that I speak to rely on referrals a lot. But how many of you are actually utilizing like what you do on a day-to-day basis for your clients? How many of you are actually doing that for your own businesses to generate leads for you? Yeah, so a few people said mostly referrals. Okay, cool. So Alicia says social media. Greg says LinkedIn only. Yeah. Cool. Okay, so we have people that are using lots of different means. Melissa says word of mouth. Marianne is doing Facebook ads. Okay, cool. This is really interesting. Sweet. So before we start to even talk about like optimizing social profiles or how to start generating those leads specifically from social media, like as you all know, being agency owners, being freelancers, social media is like a huge wide topic, and not all platforms are going to be right for all of you. Like as we can see in the chat that we have some people that use LinkedIn only and nothing else, some people that use Facebook ads, some people that just rely on referrals. So depending on kind of your business model and the kind of companies that you target, where your audience spend their time in terms of social platforms will be different throughout. So you have to think about that before you do anything. Like for me personally, I'm working with SaaS and software businesses, and where SaaS and software founders and CEOs spend their time is on LinkedIn and within Facebook groups. They're really popular for kind of early stage and seed funded SaaS companies right now. So I've spent the time when I'm doing my target customer research to really get to grips with, okay, this is who my target customer is, but if you remember, we talked about looking at the content that they're engaging with and where they're spending their time. I was able to see through that research that my targets spend their time on Facebook groups and in LinkedIn. And because I spent the time understanding that, that can really help my lead generation and my content kind of marketing strategy moving forward. So it's really important to identify where those target customers of yours are spending their time, because I can guarantee that they won't be spending like their times evenly spread across all the different social channels. Of course, it's important as a business to have like a presence on these different social channels, but when we're talking about lead generation, it's really important to just solely focus on like one or two platforms where you know your target customer or your target audience is spending the most time. And it's also important to think about, like I've put on here, vanity metrics versus tangible results, because often, I'm sure you get this with a lot of your clients and your customers, they're always interested in like maybe how many page likes they've had or how many comments they've had on a post. But ultimately, if that's not generating them results or leads, then you're not delivering. And it's the same with lead generation. Like it's great to post something on LinkedIn or in a Facebook group and get people engaging with it, but if it's not actually generating any like initial discovery calls for your business or any leads for your business, then you have to think about switching things up and changing your strategy a bit. So that's something that's really important to discuss. And my lead generation strategy personally on social media, we're going to talk about this in a moment, but mine is always very heavily kind of content focused and content led. And with that approach, it's really, really important to always lead with thinking about your target customer and like the kind of content that they're engaging with, and making sure that whenever I'm posting anything, whenever I'm like sending somebody a message, I'm always thinking about the problems that they face and the problems that typically like keep them up at night. So with lead generation on social, this is where we're gonna get into things before we start to do some like live examples of profile optimization and stuff like that. The strategy that I implement and that I utilize, maybe we can go into a lot more depth on this on another webinar. I think that would potentially be useful. But I lead with content. So this is why I talk about spending so much time identifying that target customer. Once I've done that, I then decide and see where they're spending their time, what content they're engaging with, and then I make a point of, rather than maybe sending a load of like templated cold messages or cold emails or invites, I make a point of actually spending time sharing a load of content and connecting with a load of people within this space, so that I'm constantly positioning myself as like a thought leader within the space. And that with that thought leadership and with that time, you'll start to see that you have clients that or prospects that will actually come and want to work with you because they see that you're consistently helping out people within that space. And we're gonna like show you how we do that in a moment, because I want to cover some like real time walkthroughs and share my screen with you to show you what I mean by that. So the first thing that I'm going to do is, as I said to you earlier on, where my target market spend the most of their time is LinkedIn and Facebook. So I'm going to show you my LinkedIn profile and show you how I've set that up to really kind of kickstart my lead generation on social. And then once I've done that, I think it'd be great to maybe do like one, if we can get it to work, to help one of you optimize your social profiles or even one of your clients' social profiles, because I know we all work within different industries, etc. So Let me know if that sounds like a good idea. Would you want to see how I set up my LinkedIn profile and give you guys some advice about how you can do something similar, not just on LinkedIn, but on other platforms too? Okay, great. So Vlad says yes, Sonia says yes. I can see we have a few other people tapping away. Okay, cool. So let me just try and share my screen with you all. Just bear with me for 2 seconds while I load this up. Okay, so I should be sharing my screen. Can you let me know if you can all see that still? Okay. I'm just going to switch between LinkedIn and the webinar software too to make sure you can. Great. Fantastic. Cool. Okay, so I'm just going to rearrange real quick so that I can make sure I keep the chat box. We'll just bring this up. Okay. Cool. So I should have the LinkedIn page up on the screen now. Can you see that okay? Yep. Great. And yep, so there will be a recording at the end of this webinar. All of the webinars are uploaded to the PromoRepublic YouTube channel, and that will be going up tomorrow. So I would really, really recommend just going ahead and like subscribing to the PromoRepublic YouTube channel, and then you can check out all of the recordings at your own time and like pause this and go through this step by step. So as we said, like my target customer is in brief, is like founders and CEOs of SaaS and software businesses. Of course, I've done a lot more kind of in-depth research before getting to that point, but just to give you a real brief idea, I'm going to show you how I set up my LinkedIn profile to like set me aside from other people within my niche and to really like target the pain points that those software founders and SaaS founders have. So typically, if you look at someone's LinkedIn profile, they will often use it as like an online CV. So they'll have like their job title. So for you guys, you might have like CEO or founder and then your marketing agency. And that'll be it. You'll use it as an online CV. So if we scroll down, you'll see all these different positions. And again, it will just be like, these are like 3 achievements that I had, and this is what I did whilst I was working here. And it's used like a CV. And that when you're trying to generate leads benefit you whatsoever, you have to be consistently thinking about your customer first and your target customer first. And if they have a pain point, you want to be showing them that you can solve that for them and that you're the person to solve that for them. So if I was the founder of a software company, or if I was the founder of one of your target companies and I see your LinkedIn profile and it just says founder CEO at whichever marketing business you run, that doesn't show me that you can help me. It's just another person that doesn't stand out. So I make sure that I spend time optimizing. Like the first thing is my heading for my pain point of my target customer. So I know that software and SaaS founders are always under pressure from their investors to be increasing their monthly revenues, to be increasing their sign-up numbers, and to just generally grow their businesses. And that's why you can see that here. And this is mirrored across all of my other social platforms that I utilize for lead generation too. So like if a software founder comes through to my platform, whether I give them some maybe sales focused messaging, whether they've seen a piece of content that I've posted, whether they've just discovered me on LinkedIn somehow, immediately they can see the problems that I solve for them just from my headline. And then I use some other things just for some like positioning. So I share the host of a big podcast and that I was voted as one of the top 50 SaaS sales leaders just because I'm dealing with SaaS and software businesses. And then here in this kind of about section, again, this is where most people will share like their life story with everybody. But when you're doing lead generation, you want to be thinking about your customer first and what they want to see. So that's why I start with, what can I do for you? And then that starts to expand. You can see that here. So it talks about the ways that we generate like leads for our clients and how we help them out. So this is really important, making sure that this like, what can I do for you section is really focused on that you can add. Now, we could spend like hours and hours going through the nuances of profile optimization, but I don't think that would be the most beneficial. We'll do like a Q&A session at the end of this, but I want to fly through this while still giving you all as much value as possible. So if you do have any like additional questions, we can cover those at the end, but I would also recommend like keeping your eye on the PromoRepublic blog over the next like couple of weeks. There's going to be a lot of insightful articles and things to help you out, and also just checking out my content too, because I talk about this stuff a lot of the time. So the main points here are optimizing your headline, making sure that it speaks to the pains that your customers have, optimizing your about section and showing them which problems that you fix for them. And then as we get down to the kind of profile for all of my previous positions or the pieces of work that I've done, I don't share like all of my achievements. Instead, I talk about what the business does and how we help our customers. And you see that transitions all the way through this profile. So this is one of the very first steps that you have to take before starting to do any lead generation, is making sure that all of your profiles that you're going to be using are set up in the right way and almost treated like a landing page, so that if you do email outreach or you do LinkedIn messaging outreach, or someone discovers you through your content, when they come to your page, it acts like a landing page and it shows you in the best light possible. So has that been useful for you all so far? And do you have any questions on that? I'll keep an eye on the chat box and see which questions we have, because I'm sure there's going to be a few that come up. Okay, so I don't think we have any questions. Let me just pause the screen share and double check. Okay. Okay, so we have a question from Melissa that says, if you're trying to promote your own business/services, wouldn't you use a business page rather than a personal profile, or do you not utilize business pages? Yeah, so it's a really good point. So on LinkedIn specifically, that I was going through just then, like your business page will be used to distribute like company content and distribute pieces of content. But for lead generation, you want to be using your personal page, because from a company page, you can't send messages. People like, if you were looking for a service for your agency, Melissa, like you needed some support with something, I would highly doubt that you would engage with, send a message to, or contact a company like page. Whereas if it's an actual person that is sharing something valuable, I'm sure you're going to feel much more bought into them. Like when I do lead generation, everything is pretty much solely through LinkedIn. So I use my own personal page. I have members of my team that will be doing the same thing. So it's all about like, I talk a lot about utilizing your own personal brand to increase your business revenue. And this is a great example of that. Of course, there are ways that we can set up business profiles too and optimize business profiles, but that was just like my example for my kind of number one place for online, like for optimizing my profile for lead generation. But I'm happy to maybe, if anyone that's watching this right now, I can see there's a good number of you here. So if anyone wants me to walk through like a social media page, whether it's a business page, a personal page for either their business or for one of the clients' businesses, and they want some like real-time kind of feedback on how they can set it up better, I'm happy to do that. Like maybe just if anyone would like that, if you put the link to the page within the chat box, and then I'll just pick one. I'll pick one at random, and we'll go through how we can get it set up better. Because before you start doing any like outbound messaging or sharing any content, this piece is super important. So I'm happy to help. Maybe if anyone wants a quick live run through, put the link to the social page within the chat box. I'll wait a few seconds. If we get some coming through, then we can do one. If not, we will move on to the kind of do's and don'ts of lead generation. I can see that Tiara says she would like that. So maybe if you can share the link, and if anyone else would like to kind of put their name in the hat, please put it in the chat box. And it's really important, actually. I want to show you all something that once I have these pages set up, the number one thing that I'm doing is once I've done my customer research, I know what they resonate with and what they need help with and support with. I'm consistently sharing content through my social profile that resonates with those pain points. So I'll be looking at like articles or questions on Quora and see which questions SaaS founders are asking and needing support with, and I'll be making sure that I'm creating content around that. I'll be engaging with posts that these people are creating too, and that's the way that I generate a lot of leads for my business, rather than sending tons of emails or any cold calls or anything like that. I utilize like personal branding and content to bring the leads in. It's a bit more of a slower burner, but once you get to a position of authority, it's a lot more powerful for you. So I can't see anyone that has shared a link to a social profile that they want to run through. So I'm gonna move on to the kind of do's and don'ts of okay. So lead generation do's and don'ts. First of all, let's talk about what you shouldn't do. So one of the biggest problems that that people are making is that they set up their social profiles, they understand their target customer, and they think that the way to generate leads through social, or the way to make sales, is to just always like sell their own features and their own benefits. And every social media post will be a link to one of their services, or they'll be talking about how, for example, if I'm an agency owner, you'll see a lot of marketing agencies will post on their social profiles constantly talking about how they offer social media management, or how they help customers attract more leads through paid acquisition or Facebook ads, or whatever it may be. Like every post is about selling, whereas instead we'll talk about what you should do instead in a moment, but that's definitely one thing that you shouldn't do. The other thing is to only talk about yourself and your products. And the other thing is, like, I see a lot of people now using like tools on LinkedIn or on Facebook to send messages at scale. And they're pushing out maybe 100 messages every single day to their ideal clients, but the actual messaging is really poor. They're not spending time focused on crafting good messaging. That's again why it's so important to identify your target customer, because if you do any kind of sales outreach, if you understand your target customer, you can make sure that you spend a significant amount of time tailoring the messaging to them to stand out from other people doing, let's say, cold outreach or email or LinkedIn outreach. And then another thing that a lot of people are doing, which they shouldn't, is they'll see one type of content that performs well for one person or for one agency or for one business, and then they'll just consistently copy that without being like true to themselves and without being true to their own business. I can see that Vlad and Melissa posted a couple of social profiles in the chat box. So maybe at the end of this, if we still have some time, I'll pick one or two of those and run through them. So we've covered what you shouldn't do. Now let's talk about what you should do. So the first thing is lead with value. If you remember in the previous slide, I talked about how a lot of people are always just trying to sell all the time on social media. Instead, I want you to flip that on its head and lead with value. Like if you position yourself as a leader and you help your target market, they're much more likely to want to do business with you further down the line. You should always be putting your target customer first. So when you're doing any messaging, any content creation, you should be thinking about the pain points that they have. And one strategy that a lot of people just don't think about and don't use is you should actually genuinely try to engage in conversations. That's what social media is there for. It's to like meet more people, to talk with people, to be social. And so many of us are now like automating absolutely everything and not thinking about the social part. And actually, like one way that you can stand out right now on social, which is kind of crazy, is by actually engaging in genuine conversations with people. So that's why if you go on like LinkedIn, you'll see me frequently engaging in like comments sections of people's posts, same with Facebook, etc. And although you might not think of that as like a business development or a lead generation strategy, it is, and it works. Like just today I had someone send me a message because he was a SaaS founder that posted in one of the SaaS groups that I'm in on Facebook, asking for some advice about some webinars that he was running. I shared with him some advice based on what I do for PromoRepublic and for some other clients. And now he's asking me if I can help him out with that. And that came from me like genuinely trying to help someone, but also engaging in a conversation. So you'd really be surprised at how many leads you can generate just from. And then the final point is to stay true to yourself. Like, don't just copy everyone else's content because it looks good or because it's working. There's a reason that you have like a personality, and you need to make sure that that comes across on social as well. And I said that one of the biggest mistakes that people are making is that they're just automating every single task and not remaining social. But there are also like points that you can automate. So you should automate certain activities that don't require your time to be used, but you shouldn't be automating like these genuine conversations with people. And thinking about like social media, using social to generate leads, one of the important points is like this is all very specific to creating content or to sending outbound messaging or to focusing on one or two platforms. But one of the things that we discussed earlier on is you'll understand the one or two platforms where your audience consistently are spending their time. And you'll want to spend a lot of your time focusing on those platforms and focusing on like one-off pieces of content or engaging with these people. But you also want to be able to maintain a presence across all of the different social channels, and you want to be able to speed up your kind of content creation and sharing process. And there is one way that you can do that, and that's by using like PromoRepublic. This is the tool that I like to use. So for my social media channels, I utilize PromoRepublic for myself and for my clients to make sure that I consistently have a stream of relevant content that's being shared across my social platforms and content that's going to like resonate with my target persona, because of course there's only so much time that you can spend creating content, doing lead generation, doing client work. So utilizing PromoRepublic has been extremely useful for me, for myself, for my own business, my own personal brand, but also for our clients too. Like I know a lot of you on this webinar are already PromoRepublic customers, but for those of you that aren't, I think Vlad, you mentioned that you weren't a customer too. Like we very recently at PromoRepublic released this version specifically for agencies and freelancers, and it's been in the kind of what still is in the early bird phase, but it's now live and available. And this is a great way to consistently have that flow and distribution across social. There's tons of other amazing things that PromoRepublic can do for you as an agency owner as well. Most importantly, the approval workflows. So you'll know that if you're creating social media content for your customers, one of the biggest pain points can be getting them to approve that content. And all of that can be done within the new PromoRepublic agency suite. And this can all be like white labeled as well. So there are a ton of ways that as an agency owner watching this webinar, like when you're trying to do lead generation and you're also trying to think of the 5 million other tasks that you have to be doing on a daily basis, this is where you want to automate or use intelligent software to help you with other steps. And this is one of the ways that you can do that. So the agency platform, as I said, it's right now it's on the kind of early bird special. If anyone's interested in this, I will be sharing my email in a couple of minutes so that you can reach out directly. Right now we're doing this special offer of 50% off for anyone that takes up the platform on the early bird version. I actually think this is like a mind-blowing offer. Like if you look at the prices of some other tools for what the PromoRepublic agency platform now does, you can basically, like if you were using 3 different tools, one for content creation, one for approval, one for like basic reporting, you can now have all of that in one place with PromoRepublic, and the price is extremely competitive too. I think it's very well priced, especially at this early bird special, and this is only available to people that are part of this agency and freelancer academy like webinar series. So Vlad is saying 50% off is for how long? So there's only limited seats available, Vlad. I think there's many based on what I've been told from the team. So if this is something that you want to learn more about, please send me an email. I'm going to share with you like exactly what to do in a moment if you do want to move forward with this or learn a bit more about this agency solution. And right now we are also available to set up like maybe a couple of free trials or some demos if you want to see all of these agency collaboration features like working and what they do. I know that Sonia has said is the training for the agency platform in YouTube as well. So I don't think there's training for the agent form in YouTube just yet, but I'm sure there will be. Like, this is something that's still very new and we'll be rolling out training for. But you will also have like a dedicated customer success manager and all that good stuff too. So if you do take up this agency solution, you will have a lot of training and a lot of support. And then so just one more slide about PromoRepublic before we get to the questions. So one other offer that we have put together just for you on this webinar, just for the Agency and Freelancer Academy, is a tailored content bundle. So any of you that spend a lot of time creating visuals and branded pieces of content for your agency clients, this is also a very, very good offer. So the team at PromoRepublic have put together a basically like a special deal where we will create, using our design team, 20 different unique templates tailored for your business or for your clients' businesses. So these can be all different types of content, like promotional pieces, engaging pieces, etc. They're all ready to go. They can be edited and reused. So once you have these 20 like templates, you can alter them and consistently use them moving forward. So basically, if you have like one client or a couple of clients, you can use these 20 templates and consistently change them and rotate them and edit them yourselves too. So you won't actually have to spend any time doing like design work or anything like that. And right now, this is also available on a special deal for $99. So I can see Vlad says, can I resell this? That's actually a very good question. Like when you say resell this, I'm not sure well, I know what you mean, but like this content bundle is just a special offer like right now for people on this webinar. If you have like clients that you're doing social media management for and they want content created, then of course like you can purchase this tailored content bundle and then provide them with the content and offer it to your clients. Yeah, that's what this is here for. This is an offer to support our agency clients. So that's enough kind of talking about PromoRepublic itself. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to share my email on the screen here. So if anyone wants to do one of a few things, so if you want to book onto like a demo for the PromoRepublic agency software, these are now happening and are now available. If you would like to take up either of the two special offers, so the tailored content bundle or the agency early bird promotion, send me an email to dylan@promorepublic.com. And just make sure that in the subject line of that email, you put webinar offer. That way I can like filter through the emails and make sure that I'm responding to the right people at the right time. So yeah, if you want to take us up on any of those special offers, or you just want to see how the agency platform works, because it's a lot more to it than just collaboration workflows. I know as an agency owner myself, one of the biggest issues is collaboration with clients and that approval process. So that's one issue that PromoRepublic can fix, but it's so much more than that. There's so many other pain points that it will solve for you. One of them being like time management. Like I have a social media manager on my team, and he was spending so much time creating graphics and content within Canva, and then downloading them and then re-uploading them into the scheduling tool that we were using. Switching over to PromoRepublic and using the content creator within PromoRepublic itself, not having to download and re-upload things. My social media manager is saving like 2 or 3 hours each week just from that one switch. And as a business owner, that's really important for me. So there's so many other ways that utilizing this tool can help you out. So if you do want to see the agency solution, it's new, it's very exciting. I'll take up either of those special offers. Just send me an email here at dylan@promorepublic.com, and I can connect you with the right person in the team to move things forward. So before we wrap up, I am happy to spend some time doing some Q&A. Like we still have, there's no real time limit on this webinar, but I have it scheduled for another 10 minutes. So anyone has any questions about anything that we've covered today or about PromoRepublic, I am happy to take them now. So I'll just wait a couple of minutes while some of you type away, and we can start going through those questions. Okay, so we have a question from Vlad about social media, like posting. How do you find the time when it's best to post? It's a great question. So there's a few ways. The first way is within PromoRepublic, if you were a customer, it has PromoRepublic has what's called the smart post function. So using some artificial intelligence, it works out which times are the best times to post for your various different social media profiles based on when people have engaged the most with your posts or with your clients' posts. So if you have PromoRepublic, you don't have to worry about it. If you don't have PromoRepublic, probably the best way is to go into the different profiles that you're using, whether it's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn. Within all of their analytics, you'll be able to see like typically when your followers are online the most or when they're most engaged, when they respond to posts the most. Go into those analytics, go through the breakdowns, and factor that into your content calendar if you want to do things manually. But of course, that takes a lot of time when you can just utilize a tool to help. Hopefully that answers your question, Vlad. I can see a few other people are typing away. So as I said, I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. In the meantime, as well, you typing away those questions. A quick question, like from me to you is how was the webinar today in terms of like audio quality and like screen sharing quality, etc. Because last week we had some issues, so I just want to see if the platform worked okay for you all today. If you can let me know, that would be really really appreciated. Awesome. Okay, so I can see a question from Marianne says, would you recommend buying likes and follows as growing those can take some time? So like absolutely not. I definitely wouldn't recommend buying like fake likes or fake followers for a social platform just because if you think about it, like what is the like what's the benefit to that? There is none. Like you could buy 10,000 followers and like I guess it might look like you have some social proof, but those 10,000 followers aren't going to see or engage with any of your posts. So I would recommend just like spending the time to grow that following through posting like useful and engaging content. However, if you did want like a quick kind of growth hack, there are a few things that you can do. So recently I've focused on my own like personal Instagram profile to get that over the 10,000 follower mark so that I could utilize the swipe up feature. I wanted 10,000 followers, but I didn't want them all to be like fake bot followers. So I utilized Instagram story ads to drive traffic to my Instagram profile and ask them to like follow me. Instagram story ads are super underpriced right now. So I was getting people clicking through from the ad to my Instagram profile for like 0.04 cents. And that got me over the 10,000 followers mark very, very quickly without having to spend too much. So that's one thing for Instagram. For Facebook, if you're creating a business page, I know right now there's a slight loophole almost where you can utilize your personal page to turn into a separate business page, and that will transfer across any friend, like all of your friends will then become fans of the page. But again, that's kind of quite growth hacky. Basically, I wouldn't recommend likes and follows just because there's no benefit. Like if you think about it, it's better to have like literally 20 people follow you if those 20 people are engaged and they're likely to buy than it is to have 10,000 nobodies following you. Okay, so Mike says most of our customers would never take the time to approve any content that we create. Are there other advantages to the agency offering? Yeah, it's a really good question, Mike. So the approval process is one of the biggest pain points that a lot of agencies came back to us with. Maybe if you could tell me some of your pain points and then I can let you know because like that isn't the only feature of the agency solution on PromoRepublic. There are a load of great things that you can do with it. So if you're still here, just let me know um, let me know what you would need some support with or what pain points you face with social media scheduling, content creation. If you're happy to do that in the chat box, then awesome. But if not, send me an email to dylan@promorepublic.com because I'd love to just learn a bit more about you and like your business and see how we can help you out. Okay, so Mike also says that the quality was poor for a few seconds at the beginning, but has been strong ever since. Cool. Okay, that's awesome. Vlad says just buying clicks won't give you proper metrics. Yep, that's true. But for me, buying clicks through to my Instagram profile did give me proper metrics because I could see the conversion rate from those clicks uh, to followers, which then for me, like the followers on my Instagram profile are fed into a specific funnel to get them to get their email address and to get them into a sales funnel to get them onto a discovery call with me to then position position coaching to them. So for me, it was definitely worthwhile. So Melissa says, can you talk about best practices with encouraging people to respond to / comment on your posts? Okay. Yeah, that's a good point. So I'm guessing you mean like, what if you spend all this time creating a social post or a blog post and then nobody engages with it or nobody responds to it, right? So one thing to think about with content is it's a long game. Like not every single piece of content is going to go down a storm. Like some people will engage with some posts just won't be interesting. So don't expect to have like amazing engagement on every single post. But of course, there are a few things that you can do. So you can try and initiate conversations around the post. So you could create a post and rather than just like randomly tagging people in the comments section, like don't ever do that. But if you've written a post, like think about how you can include other people in that post. So let's say I'm writing a post about, let's say I worked with them. I do marketing for SaaS companies like me and like my agency. Let's say I wrote an article like the 10 most exciting SaaS companies of 2018 or something like that. I could create that post and then I could mention these companies and then I could go and share it with those companies and I know that they're likely to engage and it's likely to create some engagement around that. So that's one thing you can do, kind of like engagement bait. But then the other thing is like opening up your posts. So whether it's a blog post, whether it's a social post, like asking engaging questions or always putting a call to action in every single post. So if you look at my LinkedIn, for example, every single post that I put out there always ends with a call to action. It's usually a question asking them to comment with something below. Like make sure you utilize call to actions because if you don't ask someone to do something, then they just won't do it. Whereas if you ask, at least you have a chance of them following through. So those would be like two quick recommendations. The other one would be like if you're running social for multiple different, let's say multiple different businesses, and their audiences could benefit from each other, like set up a small engagement pod or something like that. So let's say I create an article and share it. I then distribute that to other businesses and they will then share that in return. Like when they post an article, I will share it for them. That's a good way of growing your audience quickly. They're called like engagement groups or engagement pods. Hopefully that helps for you, Melissa. No problem. Do we have any other questions from anyone else? I can see there's still quite a few of you on the webinar, and I'm happy to continue. Okay, cool. So I can see Eddie says that he needs the recording. Sorry, couldn't engage client phone calls. Eddie, it's great to see you. I saw you in the attendee list. I think Eddie has been present on every single webinar that we've done so far, so no need to apologize, sir. The recording will be on the YouTube channel, depending on like which time zone you're in. It'll probably be tomorrow. But thank you for tuning in, Eddie. I appreciate it. Do we have any other questions before I kind of wrap things up? I can see there are a few of you typing and then stopping and then typing again. So we'll take like if we have one or two more questions, but if I don't get anything within the next minute, I will wrap up this webinar. I just want to encourage you again, like if you want to learn any more about the agency solution for PromoRepublic, or you want to take us up on the tailored content bundle, please just send me an email to dylan@promorepublic.com. Make sure you go ahead and join the freelancer or the agency and freelancer academy on Facebook. It's a community that we're building out for everyone that's part of these webinars. And make sure you check out the YouTube channel if you want to see the recordings for this. I actually have one other question. If anyone else is still here, I can see there are a few of you. Right now, we're thinking about and working on building out a free online course for agency owners and for freelancers that are at the start of their journey. Is that something that would be interesting for you? And if so, like, what would you like to see on that course? Okay, cool. So Vlad says some case studies, templates. So would they be templates for things like, I don't know, like proposals, statements of work, social media calendars? Like what kind of templates would you like? Yeah. Okay. That's interesting. Cool. Okay, thanks for that, Vlad. I appreciate that. Okay, I can see Sonia is typing what to sell to very small businesses. Okay. So you have to think about, of course, we can include something like that in the course, but just think about what their main pain points are. And also, like, I don't want to put you off from selling to small businesses at all because I know some people have made great success. There's a lot of people that have great success from running agencies focused on small businesses. But like, just think about why is it that you've decided to target small businesses and think about the problems that they have and also the kind of cash flow that they may have available or how important social media is to them. Like me personally, I don't work with small businesses for a number of reasons, but I also know a lot of people are very successful with that. So just think those things through first and think about their pain before you think about what to sell to them. Like do some research, speak to some small business owners, like even just go if you want to work with like local businesses, even just go for coffee with a few of the founders or the owners of those businesses and just try and learn from them first before you position anything to them. That's what I would recommend. Cool. Okay, I think we're going to wrap up there because the questions are running out. But thank you everyone for tuning in. Thank you everyone that's still here. I hope to see some emails from you all. I'll go away and check that very shortly. And yeah, hope to see you in the Facebook group too. And we will be back with another webinar at the same time next week. So please do come and join us on that one. And yeah, thank you all for your time. I appreciate it.